All right, hello, hello. We are live. How are you all doing? Thank you for getting here early. Woohoo! I am back from Mexico. Had a great time. I was in Puerto Vallarta. We were shooting a documentary about Day of the Dead. It was a lot of fun. It's awesome over there. They party in the graveyard with the dead bodies under them. It was pretty cool. Had a great time. Got a good tan. All right. We're gonna get started. We still got 10 minutes here, 12 minutes. Just gonna turn on the Facebook feed. Notifications are out of control this evening. It's a good thing. Well, that's interesting. Why can't it find this camera? Oh, weird. I guess Facebook isn't going to get a stream today. Camera can't be. Really weird. I'll just tell them we are live. We are live on YouTube. There was a problem. Oh, that's weird. Something strange is going on. I wonder if I open this up in a different browser. Welcome, welcome everyone. Make sure you hit that like button. More people will see this stream if you like this stream. Please like it. Hit that like button. Like button, like button, like button. Please hit the like button, like button, like button. I guess I could. Should I try on here? I guess I could. I'm worried about opening this other browser. Although, yeah, let's try this. What? Oh, man. I have to verify logging into Facebook now. I think I'm supposed to have that verification check. Yeah, I should be getting that verification check on Twitter and Facebook soon. I don't know why this isn't letting me on. Because I got the notice for it and I sent in my information. We're going to get started in about 8 minutes. Please like this live stream. Like. Share it with your friends. Invite friends. We all want more friends. I'm going to try this one more time. I don't know why it wouldn't work, but let's see. Usually with this browser, it's no problem. Well, oh well. People know, I guess. All right. Okay, cool. We are rolling. We already got you guys rolling in the chat here. Awesome. Remember to like the stream, guys. We'll get started in 7 minutes. What's going on? Yeah, I was just in Mexico. Had so much fun. Ate so many tacos. It was like, what was it? I think the cheapest taco I had was 15 pesos, which is basically like 50 cents. I think 40 or 50 cents American. And like the best tacos you could ever imagine. It was so good. Jeremiah Daniel, welcome back. Those of you who are returning, who have been joining us for these watch parties, welcome back. For those of you who are new, welcome. Right at 8. Oh yes, we did put a comment in here. I'll just read it. We will be announcing a very exciting event soon. One of the most revered Christian apologists on earth will be going head to head with one of the greatest skeptics alive today, in my opinion. Well, I think actually we can say he is demonstrably one of the greatest skeptics on the earth today. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. We'll be announcing some stuff soon with regards to new live events. Make sure you guys come over to Twitter. A lot of you have been jumping over there and doing great work from a skeptic's perspective, and I see a lot of you challenging. I'm glad a lot of you have followed me, and I've followed most of you guys back. If I haven't followed you guys, please just tag me in a post or something and say, hey, you forgot to follow me, and I will follow you on Twitter. We need more of you good thinkers on that platform because as most of you know, and it's kind of self-evident that that platform is full of a bunch of bullshitters and defamers and liars. So it's great to have more good people who are interested in having good faith conversations. And I know that's you guys, so get on over there and join Twitter. Oh, right, and the contest. If you guys want to know about the Twitter contest we have running until the 15th, there's 3 days left. I think we've had 8 entries, so there's a pretty good chance we'll do a random draw, and there'll be 3 winners. Yeah, Diablo, I agree that the platform is garbage, but I think it's garbage people that make that platform garbage. I think the garbage, I think the, well, let's just call it garbage. I think the garbage can be improved if there weren't so many garbage people on that platform. Sean Sullivan says, I don't think Jordan and Sam are assholes. I liked their conversations, honestly. Sean Sullivan, you're a psychologist. Was Jordan Peterson ever brought up when you were going to school? And if so, how did your professors view his work? All right, we've got a couple minutes here, and then we'll get going. For those of you who don't know, this is one of our watch parties. I'll be chatting with you guys as we watch some of the footage from last year's event between Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson. And in this one, they are joined by Douglas Murray on stage. And he offers a lot to this conversation as well. This took place in Dublin, Ireland, in front of 8,500 people. It was incredible to be there. I introduced these guys to come out on stage, and it was pretty incredible to be out on that stage and to hear the roar of the fans not when I came out, but when Jordan, Sam, and Douglas came out. I think it's a pretty special moment. We have there's a lot of archived footage I collected that I will release at some point for patrons. I think I'll do that, and I think I'm gonna start doing that with our patrons on Patreon, releasing some never seen before footage of just behind the scenes stuff of some of our events. I think it's pretty cool stuff. Oh, Zeddy776 says, please explain what you talk about, because until now I don't know what is topic. Well, I just kind of explained that, but Jordan and Sam are talking about basically the utility of belief in God, but not belief in God in the traditional sense, more in the metaphorical sense, a metaphorical version of belief in God. All right, we are at 8 p.m. Thank you everyone for coming to the watch party. This is awesome. Just a couple things here. Just make sure I don't have anything that needs to get answered right away. Bald Diablo says Chomsky is creepy. I've heard that before. No, he's quite a bright person. I don't agree with him on everything, but pretty bright. Okay, was there anything else? Yeah, I'll just say again, we will be announcing soon a really exciting event. This will be my first live discussion coming back since last year, so I'm really excited for that. I can't say I'm not going to say much about it now, but we are going to be finalizing the dates on this Thursday, and I'll probably be doing an early announce to patrons earlier in the day, and it'll probably be early next week that we do some announcements. But yeah, if you want to support Pangburn and what we do, go over to patreon.com/Pangburn. It really helps. All that money from Patreon goes towards translating all of our video content on YouTube into Arabic and Spanish. And I think this is really important to smash down any kind of language barrier, access to intellectual discourse, to different ideas. Thank you so much, Murphy, for the super chat. Murphy says, love your work. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Or woman. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it is. I'm so excited every day to do the kind of work that I do. So thank you. I really appreciate that. Oh, and today also, we gave away some books last time. I'm going to give away a book today. And since we got the man himself on stage, it's going to be another Jordan B. Peterson, 12 Rules for Life, an anecdote to chaos. And wherever you are in the world, you have a chance of winning this book tonight just by engaging in the chat and engaging in honest, good faith discussion and not being a cunt. And if you are from India, I see Snaggy Nagy. Sorry if I really pronounced that terribly. You are from India. If you win tonight, I will ship this book to India for you. All right. Yeah, I really appreciate the super chat, Murphy. If anyone feels like throwing a couple bucks towards this stream, rock on. If not, that's all right. Make sure you guys like this stream. Hit that like button, please. Just take a second to go over there and hit that like button. And what else do we need you to do? We need you to subscribe. Snaggy Naggy. Bal, how would you pronounce it? Okay. Sorry, I'm getting all kinds of different weird chats from different platforms right now. All right. So thank you guys so much. Subscribe. Hit that like button on the stream. It's going to help this out a lot. Let's get started. Let's watch some of this, and then we'll stop, and I'll read your guys' chat and engage with you. Oh, and when we do take a break, if anyone feels brave enough or wants to jump on Skype and give me a call live on the air here, my Skype ID is right above Jordan's head right now, and it says live at Travis Pangburn 3 on Skype. And yeah, so rock on. Let's watch some intellectual discourse.
And then part of that message is, and this is also something that's dead along the lines of what you're arguing, is that the best way to embody that is actually to live in truth. I mean, so because I would say that the fundamental Christian ethic, metaphysics accepted, once again, is to act in love, which is to assume that being is acceptable and can be perfected, and to pursue that with truth, and that you should embody that. And then I would say that the purpose of the representation, we could call them metafictions or archetypal representations, is to show that in embodied format so that it can be imitated, rather than to transform it into something that's diluted in some sense to an abstract rationality. Because I don't think the abstract rationality in itself has enough flesh on it, so to speak, which is partly why in the Christian ethic there's an emphasis that the word, which is something roughly akin to rationality, has to be made flesh. It has to be enacted.
But is the flesh made of...
Do you know what I just thought of? I don't know why this popped in my mind, but for those of you who have seen the movie Billy Madison, like at the end when Adam Sandler's character Billy is being like tutored on how to speak Spanish. Oh yeah, I'll turn on the caption. Zeddy, what language do you speak? Just let us know in the chat, and I'll turn on the caption. What was I saying? Oh, so it's like Billy Madison is being tutored by this Spanish speaking man who's like speaking really, really fast. And then Adam Sandler's like, slow down. I don't know why that just popped in my head, but just YouTube that scene if you have to. You're all like, what is he laughing at? And I'm just laughing at something in my own brain. Zeddy, what language do you speak? I'm going to guess. I mean, this will just be a guess, but oh, how come it's not giving me my closed caption options here? Oh, here we go. Subtitles. Why isn't it? For some reason, the subtitles are not on this video. Oh, it's really weird. That's a problem. Well, let's see if these English subtitles are okay. But let's Yeah, I think it's either, actually now that I'm thinking it, it's either this video hasn't been translated yet, and that's why we need more subscribers on Patreon, or there's something wrong with this one. But sorry, I can't seem to get the Arabic ones popping up for some reason, and I don't know why. Daniel T, you just showed up in the chat. You have a question. Travis, what happened with your events? Will you ever be making more events in the future? Yes. At the top of this chat, I've described that we are going to be announcing a very exciting event very soon here. Okay, so we'll just roll with English subtitles and see how terrible they are. If they even, they should be okay.
Dogmatism and superstition and otherworldliness? Is that part of what gives it its shape and necessity? I think traditionally, historically, it has been, and that's been the problem with religion. If you denude it of everything that is unjustifiable in the light of 21st century science and rationality, I think what you have to get down to is something quite a bit more universal and less provincial than any specific religion, much less Christianity per se.
Well, it's interesting too, though, that one of the points that you do make is that you do appeal to or assume the existence of a transcendental internal ethic, something like that, which I would say, by the way, just since we're going down this direction, seems to me to be something very akin to the idea of the Holy Spirit, which is something like the internal representation of a transcendent universal ethic. Now remember, I'm trying to strip these concepts of their metaphysical substrate. I'm not making a case at the moment for the existence of the great man in the sky. We can get to that later. I'm saying that what seems to be the case is that we have underneath our cognitive architecture and our social architecture a layer of symbolic and dramatic and narrative representation that instantiates the same concepts, but in a multi-dimensional context. One of the things we talked about in Vancouver, for example, is that the religious enterprise doesn't only emphasize rationality. It brings music into the play, and it brings art into the play, and it brings drama, and it brings literature, and it brings architecture, and it brings the organizing of cities around a central space. Like it's pushing itself, it's manifesting itself across multiple dimensions of human existence.
Okay, here's an interesting question. So Jordan's making the case that this engaging with this belief system brings on all these things like art, but wouldn't things like Santa Claus do the same thing? Like the tale of Santa Claus gives birth to lots of different art and yeah, just what do you guys think of that? And narrative, of course, the particular narrative that relates to Christmas and I guess what I'm getting at is there any reason why we should put so much weight on the art derived from a belief in God versus art derived from the belief that trees grow beautifully or the rings on trees? Like, what do you guys think about that?
Simultaneously, and to me that gives it a richness that cannot be diluted without loss, and also a motive power that a pure appeal to rationality I don't think can manage. And this is, see, one of the things, this is maybe a good place for Douglas to leap in. See, one of the things that Douglas, who's claimed upon multiple occasions to be an atheist, and I don't know how he's feeling about that at the present time.
Yes, well,
but it doesn't matter. One of the things Douglas has pointed out was that there are things that we've done in free countries, let's say, broadly speaking, in the West, that are worth protecting. And that in order to protect them in the longest sense, it's conceivable that we need a cognitive structure, something like that, that can act as a bulwark against those forces that would seek to undermine and destroy it. And Douglas has been driven, I would say, to some degree, to hypothesize.
That bulwark, I would suggest, is actually skepticism, valuing skepticism, not a a narrative or a system of belief that builds this fortress that protects against any kind of belief system or idea that's harmful. It's simply just skepticism. That would be my bulwark.
Is that for Christianity, for all its faults, or we could say Judeo-Christianity to broaden it, for all its faults, might provide something approximating that bulwark if we could only figure out how to utilize it properly. So,
yes. I mean, one of my problems on this is that it seems that we are where we are with belief, whether we wish it to be or not. We cannot believe as our predecessors believed, even if we wanted to. We know too much more now, and it puts us in this very difficult position. But to denude ourselves of the entire story seems to me to be a fool's errand, for a set of reasons. One of which is that...
Let's listen to why Douglas thinks that this would be a fool's errand to disregard the stories altogether.
From a lot of travel, a lot of speaking to people from all around the world, it doesn't seem at all obvious to me that what we have in countries like this one is the default position of human beings. In fact, it strikes me as being very rare. Order, even political order, political liberalism, political freedom. Very, very unusual things. And if you like the things that helped to get you there, with all of the caveats we could throw in all evening. And it's not the only thing that got us there, obviously. But that if you like, broadly speaking, where we are, you've got to be very suspicious at the very least of saying, the whole story's no good, we don't need the story, we can move on. I quote quite often the radical theologian Don Cupid, who was often described as an atheist priest. And Cupid says somewhere in a recent book, he said, we can't help it. He said, for instance, the dreams we dream are still Christian dreams, whether we like that fact or not. And without being able to believe myself, certainly not being able to be a literal believer, I worry. Yeah, I worry about what happens when the square is denuded completely. And that's why this discussion tonight, and you two in particular, are right on the cusp of this, because this is where I think a lot of us are, even if we really wanted.
So let's get to the meat of what's being talked about here. Is this worry rational? Like, is this even a rational worry? Does if obviously when there is a certain stretch of time that when someone loses their religiosity, this dogmatism that they've been relying on guiding them through life, or so they think they've been guided through this thing. Once this is gone, there is this stretch of time, this rehab stretch of time where you're like, oh, now I don't even know like what's going on in life anymore, and I just don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden people get over that and they're like, oh wait, I didn't really need that thing. I rely on my ability to calculate each situation and use my moral code. And obviously moral codes are going to vary from person to person, but generally people get along just fine without engaging with superstition, right? Or the stories themselves. Let's jump into chat for a bit here. All right, let's go to Sean Sullivan says he's talking the limitations of behavior that we all learn. He's talking the limitations of behavior that we all learn. We learn language through imitation, yes. We learn patterns of behavior through imitation. Piaget talked about it. Jeremiah Daniel says, Peterson is talking about the importance of Christianity is to live in truth through love, but why is he arguing that it's it has to be exclusively Christian, or why it has to be considered true at all. I would say, also Jeremiah. It can just be a narrative. It doesn't have to be true in any sense. It doesn't have to be metaphorically true. It doesn't have to be literally true. The claims that are being made in the book. It just has to be. It's a useful narrative. I don't know why we have to go any further than that. Daniel T says Peterson's point is moot. Even if it did manifest art, it's irrelevant to whether the claim is true or not. Yeah, I don't think Jordan made that specific claim. Well, he might say, yeah, I don't know if that would come into play. The fact that the metaphorical truth can manifest art. I think he's saying that this narrative or these ideas are so powerful that art is made out of them or is inspired by it, which I don't think anyone would disagree with. But I would also argue that these dogmas do stifle a lot of art as well. They're not just these big machines that pump out all kinds of varying different art forms. The art that is produced through religions are very specific to that religion typically, until you get some badass that makes something that he gets burned at the stake for. Jeremiah Daniel says it doesn't the possibility of a God kind of stray away from his argument of truth? Well, I mean, the counterclaim to that would be the truth he is talking about is a metaphorical truth, and this is where him and Sam get fucked up all the time when they're talking about this thing, because basically anyone else, when they're talking about what is true, it's like this glass with water, let's say this glass has water in that. So whether that claim is true or not, it has to be tested. And then if someone says, well, this God exists and that claim is true, well, what do you mean? How can we test this? How are we going to test it? Well, it's metaphorically true. Say, okay, well, how do we test if something's metaphorically true? Well, you can't. It's just a metaphor. The metaphor has been created. So it's not the same thing. Kelpesh N says science is that bulwark. Yeah, I mean, I think you can simplify it more and say skepticism, but skepticism and science are so linked. Sleep Fighter says chimps are cute. Chimps are cute. Jeremiah Daniel says, and Trav even said, why does that truth have to come exclusively from Christian tales and not others? I mean, to be honest, a lot of the stories of the Bible came from tales before. Yes, this is the point I'm trying to make with regards to the art. Judeo-Christianity is an oxymoron. That's from Donald Robertson. Thanks for the comments, guys. Sean Sullivan says, the stories are a lot like Aesop's fables. They have these lessons that deeply ingrained as a means to teach those life lessons. Without narratives, we will lose why the lessons have any value. Without narratives, there is a lot now. If we were to lose these narratives now, we would just create new narratives, right? Because our parents have, generally across the board, let's say in the West, our parents have pretty decent moral foundations that they know how to pass on to their children. Basic rules for morality. But yeah, if we're going back in time to say what would have it been like before we had these systems, well, it was very primitive. But once the narrative started, it was easier to explain these moral codes and lessons to other civilizations and trading ideas and things like that. So yes, narrative is very important. Storytelling is just highly important for a social species. Let's see. Andrew Bathurst says, is morality distilled from social construction, religion, religious practice, or is it genetically inherited? We evolve with the genetic morals of our generation. Well, we don't, our brains basically, they don't evolve with ideas. They don't have ideas in them. The pleasure drive is there, or instinct, however you want to describe that. Um, the biology is there, but the ideas aren't there. Um, the 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 baby's default position on everything is I don't know, but they obviously don't know how to communicate. I don't know, but it's everything is learned and taught, right? But if people are getting into, well, why do some people have propensity towards violence, or why do some people become psychopaths and others don't? Well, that just has to do with the uh, the biology dictating that, the chemistry dictating that. Um, some people will have the genes that can be on certain genes that can be unlocked that will lead to violence, and some people just don't have those in their biology. And also, it has to do with environment. So not everyone will be exposed to the environment that's going to unlock that genetic tendency to want to do violence. Or, um, Jeremiah Daniel again says, but it's not, to me, it's destructive to take crazy ideas that aren't substantiated as faculty real is dangerous, and we see how dangerous they have been. Yeah, so the dangerous shit has to go. Like, you can't, and obviously as we, as we trade more ideas and engage in the war of ideas, that's how we come to know that, oh, we shouldn't be burning witches, because we don't really know that they are uh, that they are witches. And then concepts of skepticism and reason and evidence come into place, and then you actually have foundations to tell whether this thing is a witch or not, and whether you, even if they are a witch, whether you should actually burn them, despite what your holy book might say. EB says, "Are you saying we are a blank slate, essentially?" Um, well, blank slate meaning we don't arrive to life with ideas or concepts or think things that or thinking ingrained. It's in that sense, yes, it's blank slate. But some genetics can have different things that can be unlocked. And I'm not a geneticist, but I really suggest reading The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. It's a great book. All right. Let's get back to some intellectual discourse. Remember to like this stream, guys. It really helps out the stream, helps everything out. Holy crap, I just looked at my Facebook and there's 80 notifications. See, I'd really like to hire some help, but I just can't trust anyone. Donnie Newman. I swear Donnie Newman's been here before and has said that. Thumbs down. Come on. Come on, Donnie. You know you want to.
To believe. We basically can't. And by the way, very quickly, that's why I think there's an additional, just to refine my previous point to you, Sam, that's why there's this additional thing. I think there is a fear, which you may have, which I also have, which is if there's a risk that even what I've just said, never mind what Jordan has also said, there's a risk I think some people feel that you're going to soften up the land somehow. And that even if neither Jordan nor I are going to suddenly start Jesus smuggling, we might...
Zeddy says, can we consider Peterson's description to the Bible the same of Quran? Yeah, so I know what you're getting at, Zeddy. Uh, these arguments should apply to the Quran as well, right? I know that's what you're getting at, and that's the thing. So if you're gonna just say that this only applies to Christianity, then you're gonna be engaging in special pleading. So it's true that these arguments, there needs to be shown why something is unique about their particular religion that they're married to, right?
Create the conditions that make it easier for someone else to do that.
Yeah.
Is that a fair?
Yeah, and it is. Yeah.
Oh, Jordan, what a nice
No
guy.
photos.
This is very Christian of you. Yes. So
Thank you.
let me see if I can sharpen up what my concern actually is here, because it's not even true to say that I think you need to get rid of the Jesus story, or even.
Sam's about to just reiterate what I was saying and what a couple of you were saying in the chat.
I don't even think there's something problematic with orienting your life around the Jesus story. I think that can be reclaimed. But so, for instance, I was walking yesterday in this fine city of yours and saw someone on the sidewalk giving tarot readings to people. He had a tarot deck spread out. He had a few cards spread out, and he was soliciting people. And I'm sorry to say I didn't sit for a reading, but tarot cards, if you're familiar with them, are the quintessential artifact of New Age woo, right? I mean, these are not thought of as legitimate tools of divination, except by people who think that they're legitimate tools of divination. And yet, a tarot reading can be truly powerful, right? I mean, this is built on something, right? This is not just a massive example of self-deception on the part of people reading and people getting their cards read. These cards can seem prescient. I could give you all a reading right now, and 95% of you would find what the cards would say to be relevant to your lives. I mean, I could do it with an imaginary deck. I mean, an invisible imaginary deck. I don't know anything about tarot cards, but I'm going to turn over two cards now. One is the sun, and the other is the fallen man. Now, I know so little about tarot that I'm not even sure the fallen man is a tarot card, right? Or I think it was the hanged man as a tarot card, right?
Man, yeah.
Okay, so I've got these two cards. And, the sun is clearly the representation of wisdom, right? And the hanged man is the representation of lost opportunity. And I can tell you with some degree of certainty that all of you are at a crossroads in your life, right? Where you have good reason to believe that you're not making the most of your opportunities, right? Now, I could go on like this for an hour, right? And pretend all...
Bal Diablo just said humans can't lick their own ass. Speak for yourself.
All the while that it has something to do with the cards actually working in concert with the dynamics of the cosmos, such that these cards that I turn over, were they real, would be the ones that of necessity were revealing something about your mind in this moment. And obviously people think in these terms about astrology and sympathetic magic and all the rest, and religion is built upon this kind of superstition. There's a way of understanding the utility of using a device like this and the real effect it has on you. I mean, if I turn over the cards and ask you to look at your life in this moment as though for the first time through this lens, considering in this case lost opportunities, right? Of course it's...
So it'll be really interesting to hear how Jordan or Douglas respond to this, because this is a good analogy for, having some belief system that can really affect you. There's been art derived from it, but the claims that are being made from it obviously aren't based on any truth. They might come true, but that doesn't mean that the cards were able to tell what was to come true.
Going to be valid. That doesn't make it can be an incredibly useful thing to do. my main concern is that at no point do you have to lie to yourself about your state of knowledge about the mechanism, right? You don't have to believe tarot cards really work.
There's deeper mechanisms at work with someone who's actually good at that. And so I agree with what you've said.
But they need not be supernatural.
No, I don't think they are supernatural. In fact, I think what happens when you use a projective technique like that, because that's essentially what it is, if I'm good at interpersonal attunement and I'm quite intuitive, what I'm going to do, and everyone does this in the course of a dialogue that's actually working well. I'm going to flip over the cards and I'm going to start with generic archetypal statements that are true in some sense for everyone. But then I'm going to watch you both consciously and implicitly, unconsciously, with all of my social intelligence, and I'm going to see through very, very subtle signs on your part when you respond positively to what I'm saying and when you respond negatively. And I'm going to continue down the lines that you established by your positive responses.
Yeah, but that's what Darren Brown does. He's a mentalist.
Right, well, it's exactly what happens when children are interviewed, for example, by people who lead them as witnesses, right? The children infer from the emotional expressions of the person who's interrogating them what it is that they actually want to hear. And
well, so it even work with that horse, clever Hans.
Exactly, right. That's right, exactly. Yes. Even horses can do this. So tarot card readers can definitely do this. Yes. So the mechanisms behind something like that, even if it appears entirely superstitious on the surface, are often deeper than is revealed at first approximation. So, and I wanted to talk a little bit, if you don't mind, for a minute about rationality, because
So, yeah, Jordan didn't really deal with what Sam's analogy there. I mean, he agreed that, yeah, this is some kind of process, but what Sam was getting at is that, yeah, it's like there's nothing unique about Christianity, just like there's nothing unique about tarot cards. And I mean, you might be able to point to a specific thing about tarot cards that really helps people when dealing with the future, but it can also lead people to believe stupid things about the future, and it can just impede their judgment or something. So yeah, it looked like Jordan just said, yeah, there's some useful things that can come out of tarot card reading that wouldn't be so obvious unless you really looked into it, and then just kind of moves on to I wanted to talk a little bit about rationality. So that wasn't dealt with. I think that was dodged, unless he comes back to it here.
We've already agreed, I think, and definitely stop me if I'm wrong, that there has to be an intermediary mechanism between the world of facts and the world of values. And well, since we've talked, I've been reading a variety of commentaries on Immanuel Kant. Mostly these have been written by Roger Scruton, by the way. And this is actually the issue that Kant...
By the way, if I look like I have a pole up my ass, I don't. I'm just really working on my posture, because I've noticed it really helps my headaches if I actually sit up straight and don't slouch like a orangutan.
What obsessed about for most of his philosophical life. And what he concluded was that empiricism can't be right and rationality can't be right as philosophical disciplines, because you need an intermediary structure, and that we have an inbuilt intermediary structure. And that structure is what mediates between the thing in itself, the world of facts, let's say, and the outputs, the values. So then I was thinking,
the truth is we don't quite agree on this. I mean, in my summary of your view of me, I would have agreed with that. But for me, it's just facts all the way down.
Okay,
You're describing more facts.
Glad to hear it, man. Yeah. Why do you need a brain then?
Well, a brain is yet another part of reality. I mean, what I mean by a fact
what does it do?
Anything
if the
that is
facts
the
are
case.
Just there. What does the brain do? It has to do something, because otherwise you don't need it.
Well, sure, it does a lot, but the
What is Jordan getting at here? He's asking. He seems to get really, really bunged up when we start talking about facts kind of existing on their own, right? Like something is like facts can exist on their own. Let's see more of what happens here, because just like, well, why a question of why would you need the brain? Well, the stuff is there. Stuff was here before brains were here. Uh, so yeah, I'll get back to the chat after this next stretch here.
Yeah. Your concern, to jump to where I think we're going in this conversation, is how is it that values can be another order of fact? That seems problematic to you. It seems problematic to David Hume.
Well, it's problematic for me for a technical reason, which is that in order to act, and we see if we agree on this, in order to perceive and to act, which I believe are both acts of value. To perceive is an act of value because you have to look at something instead of a bunch of other things. So you elevate the thing that you're perceiving to the position of highest value by perceiving it, by deciding to perceive it. So it's an act of value.
That gets translated in my brain into just more facts. You're just giving me the facts of human perception.
Well, okay, that's fine. That's no problem. Right. I'm perfectly happy about that. And then in order to act, you have to select the target of action from among an infinite number, near infinite number, close enough of possible mechanisms of action. And so what a biological organism does is take the facts and translate them into perception and action. And the only organisms that do that with one-to-one mapping are organisms that are composed of sensory motor cells, like sponges, marine sponges, which are composed of sensory motor cells. They don't have an intermediary nervous system. So what they do is they sit in the water and they make a sponge. They're so simple that if you grind a sponge through a sieve in salt water, it'll reorganize itself into the sponge. So that's quite cool.
When he's talking a bit of biology there, when Jordan's talking a bit of biology, I was just thinking to myself how a conversation between Jordan and Dawkins would go. And I don't think it would go very well. Jordan, just the way Jordan talks about things, I think a lot of it would be like Richard being like, "I'm not sure what you mean." Because Richard is about straight up, just get to the fact, get to the data, get to the thing that we are talking about. And Jordan is a very exploratory thinker out loud, and a lot of thinkers do that in their mind as opposed to out loud, like Jordan does. Let's get back to the chat here. Let me know what you guys think a conversation between Dawkins and Jordan Peterson would be like. I'd love to set that conversation up, but I've talked to Richard about it before, and he asked me. I think he was like, "Who is Jordan Peterson?" And I was like, "Well, I think I explained a bit to him, and he's like, well." I'm not sure what we'd have to talk about. So I think there'd have to be something that Richard would have to be interested in, something specifically, I think. But it would be cool to see. But I'm not sure they're a great match to have a conversation. Luke Dickinson. Oh, by the way, guys, please hit that like. I think there's 40 of you viewing right now. If you guys could please just head over and hit that like button, that would be awesome. Get those likes up. Really helps the stream out. Luke Dickinson says, is it reasonable to say that many people require a different level of understanding of ethics? Some might need to think a literal skyman is helpful in making choices. Some people need a placebo. I don't buy this. I don't, because all people from all walks of life, people from all levels of intelligence, people from all levels of cultural understanding, all levels of scientific understanding, can be convinced in the existence of gods or hold the atheist position in any of these cultures. So I don't think anyone needs a placebo. I mean, some people will say, well, they have all the different placebos, cognitive placebos that come along with just living. But if we're talking with regards to something complicated like a dogma or any type of religiosity, I think any people can find pleasures in their life that don't need to include claims that are unsubstantiated when it comes to the perspective of evidence from a scientific perspective. Oh my God, Bal Diablo says would save a fortune on toilet paper if we could lick our own butts. Wow. Jeremiah Daniel says, Sean Sullivan, right, maybe it's the moral behavior that allowed humanity to evolve, to develop language and society. I'd argue it is. Yeah, I'd really suggest reading Richard Dawkins' The Greatest Show on Earth. I just had to check my book collection just to make sure I didn't get that title wrong. The Greatest Show on Earth by Richard Dawkins talks about the evolution of morals. Where did I? Isaiah says, anyone think personal identity is an illusion? Hume describes it as a chain of impressions, albeit how does that come to play in the teleporter paradox where clones of you are created as an accident? Holy Isaiah, you have opened up some serious cans of worms there. Again, guys, go over, hit that like button. It doesn't take too long. Personal identity is an illusion. Well, no, I mean, an illusion, no, because you would say, if someone's to claim this is part of my personal identity, let's say being funny or something like that. Being funny is part of my personal identity. And someone says, prove that illusion. Then you say, okay, well, let's build a scientific model. I made these people laugh. I'm usually quick-witted, and I make people laugh at parties all the time. And when I'm okay, so look, I just built this little scientific model that proves that this is not an illusion, right? And this is all just like labels, right? However you are going to decipher what is personal identity or just like traits or identity is a tricky word, I think. Depending, we'd have to define that. A chain of impressions. Yeah, interesting. I mean, yeah, they are impressions of yourself, but you can also have other people weigh into this scientific model about your personal identity, because your personal identity is obviously affected by the information people give to you about yourself, right? Yeah, it's interesting, the teleporter paradox when it comes to you are created as an accident. Yeah, if it is that you or is it not you, right? If they're created with exactly everything, if this technology was possible, then we have to start arguing over what you really means, right? We would probably call it original you or copy you, right? Something like that. Sean Sullivan says the tarot is based on archetypal representations, which I am surprised Jordan did not pick up on being a Jungian. Those archetypes have meaning that can be applied to any situation. Sure. Andrew Bathurst, thanks for commenting, guys, by the way. This is awesome. Could feelings be the root of the religious tendencies? Feelings. Pain and suffering equals hell, and love and euphoria equals heaven. Self-consciousness. I mean, yeah, once we label what these feelings are, then we can say these are preferable to these. Like, in general, health is preferable to sickness. Once we figure out what those labels mean. Self-consciousness extending a time frame of pain or love infinitely, causing a scale. I think you should unmuddy that last sentence and tell us what you're getting at here. Jeremiah Daniel says, what is Jordan even trying to say? Homeboy is digging a deeper hole. Sean Sullivan, that is a very good point, and I agree with you. That was to Jeremiah Daniel. Oh, yeah. What else we got here? We got brain farts happening. Nice. Zeddy says, how can a person talk neutral although he lived in X space feed a specific thoughts and beliefs? Let's see if we can figure this out. X space feed a specific thoughts and beliefs. They cannot understand perspective and pattern of thinking and behave if they are already. Can't really figure out what you're saying there, Zeddy. One thing you might want to do is type it in your native tongue into a translator and then bring it over to the chat. Happy to read it again. Yeah, awesome stuff, guys. Remember to hit that like button. Thank you guys so much for that. It's awesome. How are we at? What are we at here? Okay, we're an hour in. I think we will we'll do one maybe we'll do 5 more minutes on the video, and then we'll take a break. And if anyone feels like calling in on Skype, you got my Skype ID in the screen here, and it's live at Travis Penguin 3. Just jump on Skype, send me a note if you want to call in. And if we don't have anyone that's interested, we will just do some more chat or move on with the video. We got some ground to make up from the last one, because the last one took us quite a while. I think I had a few more callers last time than normal. All right.
The sponge sits in the water.
Don't do that at home.
And what it does, is, there's waves on it, and so those are patterns. And then the sponge opens and closes pores on its surface in response to those patterns. So it maps the pattern of the waves right onto its behavior, with no intermediary of a nervous system. But it can only map waves, that's all it can do, and it can only open and close pores. That's it. So it does one-to-one fact-to-value mapping. Now what happens is that as the complexity of a biological organism increases, 2 things happen. The first thing that happens is that the sensory and motor cells differentiate. So now the organism has sensory cells and motor cells. So senses to detect and cells to detect and cells to act. Okay, so then it can detect more patterns because it's more sophisticated at the sensory perspective, and it can do more things because it has specialized motor systems. But then what happens is that as it gets even more complex, then it puts an intermediary structure of nervous tissue in there, and that structure increases in the number of layers of neurons. And what that means is that as that happens, and as the sensory cells become more specialized, and as the motor output cells become more specialized, many more patterns can be detected. Those are roughly equivalent to facts. And many more motor outputs can be manifested, but a tremendous number of calculations has to occur in that intermediary nervous tissue. And that's the structure that I'm talking about. That structure exists, and it translates the patterns into motor output. And it doesn't do it on a one-to-one basis, because there are more patterns, more facts, than there are motor outputs. So what has to happen is this tremendous plethora of facts that surrounds us has to be filtered to the point where you pick a single action, because you can't act otherwise. And so the mechanism that reduces the number of facts to the selected action is the mechanism that mediates between facts and values. And it's not simply in and of itself, it's a fact that exists, but it isn't a simple, that what it does isn't a simple fact. You can't explain it. You can't understand it.
Why not? Why not? Why
Well,
is that a fact?
for the same reason that you can't.
I mean,
Look, for the same reason that you don't know what a neural network is doing. Like, you can train a neural network, an AI neural network.
There's a distinction between facts and facts that we know, right? There is, whatever it is the case.
Yeah, so it sounds like Jordan's just talking about something that that we maybe don't have a proper label for yet or haven't discovered yet. But then we're just talking about God of the gaps, right? This is a fallacy. So let's see if there's anything deciphered here.
Right, and then there's our understanding of it and our misunderstanding of it. So there are many things that we think we know that we're wrong about. There are many things that we are aware we're ignorant of, and there's always this larger space of reality that we're struggling to engage with. And it may in fact be the case that in evolutionary terms, I mean, we know it's the case that we have not evolved to understand reality at large perfectly. That's not the sort of monkeys we are, right? And you could even argue that one cognitive scientist who...
Oh, Sam, we are not monkeys, we are apes. Smack!
Some of you may have heard of, Donald Hoffman, is arguing now, very colorfully, that human consciousness or the human mind is actually evolved to get things wrong in fairly specific ways, so as to maximize survival, and that
was the argument I made in our first discussion.
No, but here, no, it was not quite, because this still preserves the difference between getting things right and getting things wrong. His argument is that getting things truly right, having a nervous system and a cognitive architecture that could really understand reality, quote, reality as it is, would be maladaptive. And he has some mathematical demonstration of this, that the quote true representations of reality are categorically maladaptive, and that there's a certain kind of error that is, and I'm not sure I buy this argument, but the fact that you can make this argument, the fact that you can differentiate the adaptively useful misunderstandings versus a true understanding that's maladaptive, the fact that we can even talk about that demonstrates to me that we have this larger picture of what is in fact true, whether we know it or not. And this is what religion gets so catastrophically wrong. I mean, religion gives you some other mechanism whereby to orient yourself. In this case, revelation.
Religion does provide those functional simplifications. That's
but
its purpose.
they're simplifications appropriate to the Iron Age.
Well, some of them are.
If then.
Some of them are, for sure, and that's why we have to have this discussion, because mere revelation and mere tradition is insufficient, and I truly believe that we can agree on that. But back to the biological argument. So, because I thought that tonight I would make a very strictly biological argument, is that. So now the question is, now you've got your sensory systems that are detecting the world of facts, and you have your motor output system, which is a very narrow channel, because you can only do one thing at a time. And that's one of the things about consciousness that's quite strange. It's a very, very narrow channel. So you have to take this unbelievably complex world, and you have to channel it into this very narrow channel. And you don't do that by being wrong about the world, but you do that by ignoring a lot of the world and by using representations that are no more complicated than they have to be in order to attain the task at hand. It's like you're using low-resolution representations of the world. They're not inaccurate, because a low-resolution representation of the world isn't inaccurate any more than a low-resolution photo is. But they're no higher resolution than they need to be in order for you to undertake the task at hand. And if you undertake the task at hand and that goes successfully, then what you've done, and this is basically the essence of American pragmatism, what you've done is validated the validity of your simplifications. So if the tool you have in hand is good, if the axe you have in hand is sharp enough to chop down the tree, then it's a good enough axe. And that's part of the way that we define truth pragmatically in the absence of infinite knowledge about everything. Okay, so now you build up this nervous system between the world of facts and the world of values, and it narrows the world of facts. And the question then is, how do you generate the mechanism that does that narrowing? And this is what's useful.
But I mean, that's not quite how the cake is layered. Because the facts are up here too, right? For me to even notice that you're a person, right, or to attribute beliefs to you, or to have a sense of being in relationship at all, this is one of those higher order interpretive acts based on a many-layered nervous system.
Yes,
right?
It's not only bottom up.
Yeah, but it's bottom up and it's top down.
Yes,
but facts are also on the top, right? It's not that we have facts here and values here.
Well, I think what I'm trying to do.
You can't get to a fact, but through going through a process like this.
I think what I'm trying to do, I think maybe, or it's one way of thinking about it, is that you're positing that we can use rationality as a mechanism for mediating between facts and values. I believe, because otherwise there's no use for rationality. We can just have the facts.
But
so it's a process.
It's even simpler than that. It's just that for me, and I think for everyone if they will only agree to use language this way. For me, values are simply facts about the experience of conscious creatures. Good and bad experiences give us our values.
Yeah, but they're
Right.
not simple. That's
No,
the
no,
problem.
but-
and neither are the goods and the bads.
But some are very simple. Having your
claim
hand
that
put
they
on a
were
hot
necessarily
stove
simple,
is
then.
incredibly simple. And you
Not
don't,
if it'll save your child if you do it.
well, but again, the unpleasantness of it, right? No, that's an orthogonal point.
No, it's
yes.
not. No, it's not. If you look at the way the reward and punishment systems work in the brain, you can easily train an animal using reward to wag its tail if it's being shocked electrically. You can do that, and you can wire it very low to do that.
There's a range of unpleasant experiences we can have where we can construe them as pleasant or necessary, right? And that's a kind of a higher level, frame
That's the
around it.
top-down issue. Yeah.
But I'm talking about, the worst possible sensory experience that all of us will agree is unpleasant, right? That doesn't require a story for us to feel aversion to. And there are many things like that in life that are just rudimentary, where it's just we are organized in such a way that if you put us into fire,
okay,
we don't like it.
So are you claiming then, like, this is another problem? This is where I think that the argument that you make, although accurate in its rudiments, let's say, is insufficiently high resolution, because now it sounds to me like you're including the domain of qualia unquestioningly in the domain of facts. Now, you can do that, but we need to know if that's what you're doing. Like, what are these facts you're talking about? Are they mere manifestations of the objective world, or do they shade into the subjective as well?
There are objective facts about subjective experience. So yeah, I can make true or false claims about your subjectivity, and you can make those about your own subjectivity.
It's funny, they're going into really muddy, treacherous water, which is difficult to understand and to navigate, and then they go into very simple valleys of just like basically skepticism or science 101 or logic 101.
Right? You can be wrong about your own subjectivity. We're not subjectively incorrigible. And I might have said this last time in Vancouver. I mean, the example I often use here is to speculate about what JFK was thinking the moment he got shot, right, is not a completely vacuous exercise. There are literally an infinite number of things we know he wasn't thinking, right? So we can make claims about his conscious mind at that moment in history, which are as scientific, even though the data are unavailable. Right? So I mean, many people get confused between having answers in practice and there being answers in principle. I mean, there are many trivial fact-based claims we could make about reality where we can't get the data, but we know the data are there. I mean, so do you have an even or odd number of hairs on your body at this moment? We don't want to think about what it would take to ascertain that fact, right? But there is a fact of the matter, right? And so it is with anything. I mean, so what?
That's a really funny statement, because it would have to include testicle hair, ass hair, all that business.
What does a person weigh? Many facts are blurry because you're going to weigh him down to the 100th decimal place? No. So it's like at a certain point you're going to be rounding, and someone's weight at that point is changing every microsecond because they're exchanging atoms.
What Sam is getting at here, and this is an important thing, is that when people claim that you have to have that absolute certainty is even attainable, because of the matrix hypothesis, you essentially can't get absolute certainty from anything. And I challenge anyone to make an absolute certain claim in the chat, and I will show you how you just cannot make this work. You cannot be absolutely sure that you're conscious right now, because you could have just blinked into existence with all of the memories that you've been programmed to remember, including things that happened earlier on in this chat. So that basically Sam's getting at the requirement for absolute certainty is kind of it's kind of this bullshit thing that a lot of people think that that's what knowledge is, but knowledge really is a 99.9999999% requirement.
With the air. So there are facts that can be loosely defined. This is still this.
All right, Luke Dickinson, brave, first one. He just made the claim, I just pressed enter on my keyboard. And is that your claim of absolute? Are you absolute certain that you just did that? Or did you hallucinate that you did that? Are you sure you didn't just blink into existence right now and you just have that memory installed in your mind? Because this is possible when we're talking about the percentage of the chance that you are in the matrix right now, and that had happened to you, that you had just been downloaded with these memories, is extraordinarily small, but it's still it's a possibility, and that's when the requirement for 100% certainty is a I just call it a false requirement, an unneeded requirement.
This is true of our subjective lives too. So if it is a fact about you that when you were praying to Jesus, you felt an upwelling of rapture, right? Subjectively, that can be an absolutely true thing to say about you. We can pair that subjective experience with an understanding of the neurophysiological basis for it. You can think about it in terms of a larger story about your life, but all of this can be translated into a fact-based discussion about what's happening for you. And my only claim is that the value part, and hence the ethics part, relates to the extremes of positive and negative experience that people have in their lives.
You can tell that it would have been Brett Weinstein is missing at this point. To kind of clean up this mud, but I know Douglas is so interested in what they're talking about that it's a hard task. Okay, I think we'll take a quick break. I think I'm gonna grab a beer actually. So grab a drink, go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do. But first, before you do, please hit that like button. I will hit the chat when we get back, and then I believe Sean Sullivan is gonna come on the air, and we're going to have a chat. He wishes Jordan would have went to a certain place when Sam was talking about a proposition, and he wished Jordan would have went to a certain place, and he's going to tell us what that is when we return. So we'll take a couple minutes of a break here. Use the bathroom, do whatever you need to do. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Woohoo! I am back, but we're still on break. We are still on break. Thank you guys for liking that, liking the live stream. Helps us out a lot. Rock on. Oh, it looks like Ted is here. WHWWD and Philosophy Ted. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, you like those blue pants? I made them myself. No, I didn't. I am having a Stella. Oh, yeah. Oh, I got the wrong screen up. Oh, yeah. Sponsored by Stella. I wish. Yes, big events on the horizon. Really excited. On Twitter, I tweeted out to ask everyone what they would think about a conversation between Andrew Yang and Dinesh D'Souza. And I got quite a big response. You guys should head over to Twitter and check that out. Dinesh retweeted to his audience. He's got 1.3 million followers on Twitter. And yeah, there's been pretty good response. And a lot of Andrew Yang's Yang Gang responded. I've sent Andrew a few notes. Haven't heard back from him. I know he's busy though. So yeah, we'll see. That's an event I'd like to. I would like to put together for sure. Okay. Oh yeah. Anyone else having a drink, or am I the only alcoholic drinking on Tuesday? I'm missing a lot going on. I'm just trying to catch up a little bit on some Facebook junk here. Jeremiah Daniel, I lost my virginity to Fuel by Metallica. Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that much out of desire. Ooh, let me. I wonder if I'll win a Grammy for that performance. What are some conversations you guys would like to see? Who are some intellectuals, or even, they don't have to be intellectuals. Who are some people you'd like to see on stage having chats about cool things? Let me go through the chat here. Doorknob Head, welcome back. Let's see if there was any people making... Yeah, epistemology is not bullshit. That is correct. Oh, it's Mank Deems again. The question is whether it's appropriate to delve deeply into it in a particular dialogue or not. Yeah, and also with epistemology, it's like, yeah, let's not get into to that conversation now, but in some areas of thinking, the requirements for absolute certainty are essential in epistemology, and in some circles it isn't. So Donald Robertson says, I am absolutely certain that I am experiencing my current thought. No, because the Matrix just uploaded you right now, and they gave you that memory that you were experiencing that thought. Nice try. 4444. Nice name. Username of the year goes to 4444. Maybe it's 4 space 4 space 44. Says, I am certain I'm going to bed now. Oh man, that one's too easy. Come on. Doorknob Head says, "Do you know you are going to grab a beer?" I know that I just did go and grab a beer. I know this to, I would say, 99.99999% certainty, and that's pretty good for me. Mank Deems, Pangburn is gone. Post images of the Pope. You'll get banned. Jeremiah Daniel says, "Oh, we need to have Trav create a Pangburn Discord." Yeah, a lot of you keep saying that. I'll think about it. I'll keep thinking about it. I guess I just there's a lot of shit going on right now, and yeah, I gotta find some time to do that. I'm sure it would take like 5 seconds. Um, semantics. Can't argue with solipsis because I don't really exist. That's a good one. I like that. By Hydra Hydrant. I know you've been here before. EB says, God isn't any specific highest good, but is the concept of highest good per se. Why do you need it? You can just say highest good. You don't have to say God. The God label isn't necessary. Stephen Gaspard says, "What do you think of Sam Harris's Lying Book?" I haven't actually read that book, but if anyone else has read that one, let me know what you think. Zeddy says, "Cognitively, it makes no sense to search for a real world that is unconditioned by consciousness." It makes no sense to search for a real world that is unconditioned by consciousness. Makes no sense. And what do you mean by conditioned or unconditioned by consciousness? Are you saying consciousness can condition a world? If we cannot stop thinking about truth by definition as something independent of consciousness. Well, I mean, there are things that are true based on, our scientific theories that we've built that are independent of our senses, or that don't have to pass through our senses in order to describe them or build repeatable models, right? Did you pull? What is that? Oh, sorry, my screen jumped a bit. Sean Sullivan says, "Now I don't feel bad for drinking beer. I'm having an Enter Night by Stone in collaboration with Metallica." Nice. Ted says, "I'm changing my channel name. Thank the Lord Jesus Christ." That channel name, WHWD and philosophy, I can't stand saying that. Now we're talking about what we all lost our virginity to. That's funny. The song, I mean, whatever the song was that's playing. Let's Ball Diablo says, Pangburn, do you understand the distinction between capitalized God and lowercase gods? No. What do you mean the distinction? I think the God label is used in so many different ways that if you claim that there is a specific distinction, I feel like I could find many people that use the label in the way that it wouldn't be in line with the way you are describing the different distinctions. I guess because I've just heard so many versions of those terms. But yeah, let's see what you got. So let's see. Hey, if Sean, if you're available, give me a call and we'll have a chat. All right, Sean Sullivan's going to be coming on. All right, Mr. Sean Sullivan, you are on the air, my friend.
All right, are you able to hear me okay over there?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. So I guess getting to the point where I had messaged you was when Sam Harris was talking about tarot readings.
Yep.
Jordan being a Jungian and understanding archetypes, I'm surprised Jordan didn't latch onto that and be like, now, wait a second, the reason why tarot readings are why everybody does them is because everybody understands the archetypes, because it goes to the collective unconscious in a sense. It's the unlearned things that we know that we didn't have to learn. Kind of like when you're a kid playing pretend, you automatically know what a hero is, you know what a villain is. It's done in the pretend play. And I'm surprised that Peterson didn't hop onto that.
Right. So, I mean, as far as the analogy you just used for kids playing in the playing, cops and robbers and things like that, and villains and heroes, are you suggesting these are not learned?
Well, what I'm suggesting is okay. You know how Sam Harris talks about, like, people can do tarot readings and they can do these cold readings and kind of implant these cards and their meanings into describing your life, and in some way you'll find a way that it relates to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And so I'm surprised Peterson didn't hop on that and be like, well, yeah, that's because they're archetypal representations, and you can look at the cards, figure out what they mean, and you can implant them into how it relates to you and your life, kind of way.
Right. And where is the difference? And would you say that there is a difference in the Christian in interpreting the Christian God?
I would say that you could definitely make the case for it, because if you look at the Christ, like, say, look at the Christian God, for example. Jordan uses the definition of the highest ideal in the hierarchy of ideals, the highest value, or what have you. And then in his biblical lectures, he's looked at Christ as like a hero figure. That's the figure of emulation. So you can look at any part of the Jesus story as, I think that's what either Sam or Douglas called it, was the Jesus story, and saying, well, you can put some sort of archetypal representation out of it and kind of look at something to emulate there. And so I think Jordan could have latched onto that and totally took the conversation in a way that would have been useful. I think it was a wasted opportunity.
Yeah. Do you think if Brett would have been there, that would have been something he would have jumped on?
I honestly do, because Brett looks at religion the same way Jonathan Haidt does. And I don't know if you're familiar with Jonathan Haidt's work or not, but Haidt looks at religion as an evolved process that ingrained in us the morality that kind of now we're looking to ground in fact, but because we're religious based species, because human cognition or advanced cognition has only been around for a few thousand years
Yeah.
compared to the overall evolutionary history of the human species. And so I honestly think that if Brett Weinstein would have been present, he probably would have saw that and would have given Jordan his in. But being that Jordan is a Jungian psychologist, I'm surprised that Jordan didn't latch onto that.
Yeah, well, I would say that like major religions, like we can maybe say, let's just say for the sake of argument, 5,000 years that human beings have really gone from just storytelling to building complex. I got the beer burps. Complex religions, which is basically just a thin hair of time on the evolutionary scale of a human being. So I'm not sure how much weight we should be putting on how influential religiosity has been. I would say more it's just the powerful storytelling, the powerful narrative that would form things. And of course, the narrative becomes more powerful when you start promising afterlife and and start believing in actual deities and actual gods. But couldn't don't you think we could have got to where we are, uh, ideologically with humanity, if we had gone a different route and gone the way of just creating art based on the nature around us, and those kind of dictated our stories and how we taught people, basically the way a lot of Native American cultures tell stories.
Well, it's possible, but I mean, Native Americans still had what they called the Great Spirit. Didn't give it a name like Christianity or even Judaism by calling the Great Spirit God, but it's still roughly about the same principle. There's the Western Shoshone people that believe that the Great Spirit they called Shoshone, which was their version of God, created Earth, created the Shoshone people, and showed them how to live in respect to the land. Now, granted, it's not as what am I? It's hard to articulate. It doesn't
Dogmatic.
have the same exactly. It doesn't have the same dogmatic principles that Christianity has, or even Judaism has.
Right.
But the stories archetypically are roughly about the same, give or take, quite a few details and quite a few stories, because they have their own flood myths, just like Christianity has its flood myth with Noah's Ark. Only difference is the
Yeah.
sun dried up all of the flooded water that provided
Right.
land that became the Great Basin out in Nevada and California and all of that area there, where the Shoshone people live.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of the generally good principles about how society should be shaped, basically based on you you should not be doing onto others that you wouldn't want done to yourself. Like most cultures and most archetypes kind of have evolved with that general principle, I think, throughout humanity, because I think that just yields the best results from a well-being and a pleasure perspective. It just makes society more pleasurable to live in if there's not people that are allowed to go around just chopping people's heads off if they feel like it, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely understandable. But when you come to the archetypes, and if you, especially from a Jungian perspective, if and I highly recommend, if you can, and it's hard to read. Christ, I read it 3 times. Was Carl Jung's Archetypes in the Collective Unconscious, and those archetypes transcend all the different creation myths, and they transcend all the different cultures. But it's not a learned thing. It's not something that's. It's not like your parents say, "This is what a hero is. This is what a villain is. This is how you should act." Those archetypes are kind of unlearned and deeply ingrained in our being somehow. I don't know. I've seen in the chat they talk about genetic instances, but that's that collective unconscious. And unfortunately, when Jung came up with that principle, it was way before the time that you could even try to give any sort of empirical science-based investigation into that. But I think that would have been a useful conversation for Sam and Jordan to have.
Right. Yeah, well, we'll see. I can't remember if they do get into that again in the fourth video, or if they get back to it here. But yeah, we'll have to see. But anyways, thanks a lot for calling in, man. I really appreciate it. Would love to chat with you again sometime.
I would look forward to it. Thank you.
Hey, do you already have a copy of 12 Rules for Life?
Yes, I do. I have a
Okay.
copy of 12 Rules for Life, and I have Maps of Meaning. So.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for the call, Sean. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, everyone. That was Sean Sullivan. Thank you so much for the call. Let's get back to the chat here. Are you guys behaving over there? Better be. I'm just burping into the mic constantly. A lot of people. I had a lot of discussions going, and I kind of abandoned them when I came online here. Okay. I don't know if Val Diablo got to the question he was asking me. Huh. All right. Hey, thank you guys for listening to that. That was awesome. Thanks for the call, Sean. So it has come time that I must. Jeremiah, can you remind me? I don't think you've won a book yet, have you? Have you won a book? Jeremiah has been giving it in the chat, working hard, getting to the truth, attempting to get to the truth. Good faith discussion. We'll see how much the delay is here. Ground control to Major Tom. Actually, I should type it. Okay, Jeremiah Daniel has not won a book. So today, the winner. Hey, it's Judo Guy. Welcome back, Judo Guy. Today, the winner of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, the big bestseller, #1 bestseller, by Jordan B. Peterson, is going to Jeremiah Daniel. You are the winner. So all you have to do, everyone say congrats to Jeremiah. All you have to do is go over to the Pangburn Facebook page. That's at Pangburn Inspire on Facebook, and send us a message through the instant messenger there on the Pangburn page, and we will ship that book to you, the book you've just won. And make sure you include your address. And yeah, awesome. So Jeremiah Daniel's the big winner for today. Awesome. Thanks for engaging. Let's get back to the video here. Again, you guys, thanks so much for hitting the like button. If you haven't hit it yet, hit that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed, of course. And if you guys want to engage in the crazy Twitter world, come over to Twitter, have some conversations, add me. I'm at the Pangburn on Twitter. Usually a lot of entertaining shit going on. There's a lot of you that are great, are so great on Twitter, and you're so gracious, and you're there, you defend me against nonsense idiots on Twitter, and I love you for it, and thank you guys for that. And yeah, and you guys should all definitely be subscribed on Facebook. Even if you don't normally go on Facebook, you just make a random, just fake account or whatever, and come over and engage in the conversations on the Pangburn page. It's really worth it. There's a lot of great stuff going on there. All right, so let's get back to some video. Woohoo!
First of all, I don't want to dispute the fact that there are stable qualia, pain and pleasure, for example, and also that there are fundamental motivational systems that structure our perception. So as the nervous system increases in complexity, these underlying nervous system subsections that produce these rather stable qualia evolve. Hunger, thirst, defensive aggression, sexuality, all these subsystems that label experience with certain somewhat inviolable labels. I understand that happens. But the point that I'm trying to make here is, I think, to try to increase the, what would you call, the breadth of the conversation about how facts get translated into values. Because it seems to me the other thing that your account doesn't take proper, and this is what surprised me so much about your thinking when I first encountered it. See, I think the manner in which facts are translated into values is something that actually evolved, and it evolved over 3.5 billion years, the 3.5 billion years of life, and it built the nervous system from the bottom up, and it built this reducing mechanism that takes the infinite number of facts and translates them into a single value per action, and it does that in layers. And so there is a relationship between the world of facts and the world of values, and there has to be, but it isn't derivable one-to-one in the confines of your single existence through pure rationality. It's way more complicated than that.
Well, yeah, there's more to it than rationality. Yes, I mean, again, it's not rationality that causes you to remove your hand from a hot stove. And it's not rationality that causes you to like the experience of love and bliss and rapture and creativity over or more than pointless misery and despair.
Right.
Right.
So other things other than rationality are clearly necessary, which is partly my
absolutely.
point.
But
Okay.
the question is, do we ever have to be irrational to get the good thing?
I would be the most annoying motherfucker of all time if I was on that stage right now. I'd be like, it's the pleasure drive. Just my answer to everything. And they'd be like, no, but we need better, we need different ways of understanding the intricacies of this. It's only pleasure.
In life. And I would argue that the answer to that is clearly no. There's nothing irrational about loving your wife or your best friend or yourself.
Oh, Ted, you said you're still waiting for your book. Yeah, they're being all the books that have been won up to date will be shipped out by this Thursday or Friday. I think it's Friday. So you guys will be getting them soon. But yeah, they will be on their way.
Or even a stranger. If what you mean by love there is genuinely wanting happiness for that person, genuinely taking pleasure in their company, genuinely wanting to find a way of being where you're no longer in a zero-sum condition with a stranger or with a partner, but you're collaborating together to have better lives.
Well, it seems to me that you're not...
So rationality moves through that situation continuously, because rationality is the only way that you and I can get our representations of the world to cohere. It's when I say, okay, there's a lion behind that rock, don't go over there. That only makes sense to you if you're playing this rationality game the way I'm playing it. If I mean something else by lion, or I mean something else by don't go over there, you're confused and very likely dead or not.
Well, so
right?
if we're trying to establish the proposition that rationality is the mechanism by which we make our worldviews cohere, I would agree with that in part. We also make them cohere because we're actually biologically structured the same way, and so there's a proclivity for them to cohere to begin with. But we iron out our differences through the exercise. I wouldn't call it rationality. I would call it logos, because I think it's a more it's a broader and
this is where he's smuggling in Jesus,
well,
I'm afraid.
yeah. I'm not unconscious of that. Let's say.
So if I could, just a point of order here, I'm disconcerted by Douglas's silence.
Yes.
I want to pivot because I know how good he is when he actually speaks.
By the way, Douglas Murray is one of my favorite guys to have a drink with. He's fucking hilarious, and he likes to have a good time. That's for sure. Actually, Sam does too. Jordan's not a drinker, obviously. I think most of you know his diet habits and stuff. But he'll hang out. But yeah, Sam likes to have a drink, and definitely Douglas. Yeah, Douglas is a lot of fun.
So I want to pivot to another subject, because we can return to this at some point if we need to.
First, before you pivot, say
go
something?
for it.
I mean, having said to you what I think your concern is with Jordan, I mean, it strikes me that Jordan's concern, and I share this, just as I share some of your concern that we expressed at the outset. I mean, Jordan's fundamental concern, it seems to me, is one I fundamentally share, which is rationalism isn't enough, and it's... Or let me put it another way.
Okay. But then two of you, can you both show me where it's obviously insufficient? Like
music.
But there's nothing. But again, so to say that there's more to life than being rational is not to.
No, music isn't irrational. Music is, again, I would be the one on the stage. It's the pleasure drive. But no, music with music, it's like you hear something, it's like, oh, that sound brings me pleasure, and it's not like it's irrational to feel that pleasure. It's just the process. So yeah, I think music's a horrible example. Let's see what Sam does with that.
Say, and perhaps never to say, you need to run against rationality. You need to be irrational in order to get something good.
Let me express it a different way.
Yeah.
we haven't tried the purely rational approach yet, or we haven't
Well,
tried it for very long.
Well, many of us have been trying for a couple of centuries at least.
Which is a blip.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
the tiniest dot at the
Yeah.
end of human evolution.
Okay, but if Douglas is going to start making that claim, we've only been really thinking rationally for a very short period of time as human beings, as Homo sapiens. So let's see. That this could be a special pleading. I might have caught Douglas in a special plead here.
So I think that a concern which Jordan has, and certainly a concern I have, is if we try this, we can think of all sorts of ways in which it can go wrong. If you take away all that supporting structure, you can think of any number of ways in which it can go wrong. And that I suppose that's at the root of the concern about where you might be taking us. Or to put it another way, if we enter the world that you would suggest.
Why is Douglas saying that? Like, why does Douglas think that Sam is making the claim that we should just hack away any kind of narrative that has given us value? No one's making that. This is an argument from extremism that is being made, and Jordan is doing the same thing with when trying to combat. It's like just looking at these narratives in a rational sense, or still making them adhere to the rules of logic and skepticism is not a bad thing, and it doesn't kill the value just to understand what they actually are.
Not everyone may necessarily come out as Sam Harris.
Well, give me one way where you think it can go wrong. And again, we can't forget your caveat, which you started with.
What if you're not very smart?
Right. Well,
No,
so,
I don't mean.
but
I mean
that,
a person,
so then you're
obviously.
basically saying that the stupid people need their myths. You know, we smart people on stage don't need them.
Right.
But
Well, I actually am saying that to some degree. Look, if you're not exceptionally cognitively astute, you should be traditional and conservative. Because if you can't think well, you're going to think badly. And if you think badly, you're...
No. If you can't think well, you're going to think badly? No. That's not... This is not mutually exclusive. I just saw something pop in the chat.
You're going to fall into trouble. And so it is definitely the case, and this has been what would you call a cliche of political belief for a long time.
Oh, we got an ad playing. Paying for the beer.
Janet?
Whoa,
Hi,
two
Steve.
ads. What
We
the
spoke
hell?
last week about your expansion plans. I think
for a long time. If you're not very smart, it's better to be conservative, because then you do what everyone else does. And generally speaking, doing what everyone else does is the path of least error moving forward. Now, that doesn't mean that rationality is unnecessary. And
Nor does it mean that all conservatives are stupid.
It doesn't mean that either. Right, precisely. It doesn't mean
Very
that
important.
either.
Shit. What the fuck are they talking about? Okay, make sure you guys hit that like button on the stream. Let's get back to some chat here. Let's go. I need some energy here. Oh, I just burped into the mic again. That's what sucks about wearing these headsets. Okay, let's go down here. Okay, Abu Manaseri says we are arguing the problem of evil with a presumption that God exists. Oh, you guys are talking about this. Bal Diablo says God, the supreme or ultimate reality. Oh, you're talking. This is the definition I was looking at. God with the capital G is the supreme or ultimate reality. We don't need that label. We don't need that label with all this baggage. Small God, a being or object controlling a particular aspect or part of reality. God is the owner, author. Gods are managers. Kings, gods manage God's property. Yeah, so what? We don't need all those labels to describe anything that actually is. God already has its meaning, and it's been described uh, as what God is. And it comes from deism. This idea of this thing that creates. And there are some versions of personal gods, some versions of gods that don't give a shit. After they create something, they just got the universe going. But the God label is too muddy. Don't need it. Don't need it. Sean Sullivan says, rationality is how we logically think about things. It's how we break down stimuli into a way we understand. Logos is the acting out truthfully. It is truthful speech in action. Abu Mansuri says, well, it would be very hard to go through the rational philosophical arguments of the existence of a creator in a chat with 200-word limit. No, you just have to... no, you just have to give the evidence for the existence of gods or of a creator. Just give us the evidence. Ted says, I say it is the avoidance of suffering drive. Nice. Donald Robertson, zing. It's irrational to get pleasure from some types of music. No, I don't think so, but I know what you're getting at. Jordan 01239547 says, excellent name. Jordan thinks he owns all human values. And Abu says, what makes you say that? Puddington, thanks for coming to the chat. If you can't think well, then you might think badly. If you can't think well, then you might think bad. If you can think well, you might think badly. This is all. Everyone is subject to thinking badly. Some of the greatest thinkers on this planet think badly about some things. I think this general blanket statement is not a good one. Let's see. Remember to like this stream, guys. It helps for more people to see it. Let's see. The Supreme or Ultimate Baal Diablo says, oh, you already put that. Okay, Baal, you got to stop spamming here. Evie says, Pangburn, what is the opposite of thinking well then, if not thinking badly? Well, I'm not saying it's not the opposite of it. I'm just saying that if you don't think well, saying that if you don't think well, you might think badly. You could say if you think well, you could think badly as well. I just think it's a bad generalization. Knockdown Notch says, it is true that if you don't think well, then you are either thinking poorly or not at all, and perhaps religion encourages the latter. It is true that if you don't think well, then you are either thinking poorly or not at all. So it will depend on what you mean by well. If you mean well by moving towards the next best potential pleasure, or well moving towards your thinking is geared towards rationality, then sure, we can measure that. But you know, this gets so the interpretation gets so subjective, because then we end up getting to a point of what Jordan and Sam are talking about. That is, if they did not have these structures, like Jordan's saying, if he's afraid of losing these structures of what's going to happen to someone's thinking or the way they perceive the world or move through the world. Brett says most people just don't have ideas. It takes a few IQ points to come up with a really bad idea. No, everyone has ideas. I mean, ideas are the things that a lot of people aren't. I would say maybe a fix to this statement is a lot of people are not able to articulate their ideas, but when you ask them and you try to talk to them about their ideas, they will give you some nonchalant, not very well thought through version of what their idea is, and then they may want to refine it like we all do. But just some people have thought about these ideas more and are more reflect more on these. But if you can't think rationally, you do think badly. Um, yes, there are good and bad versions of thinking. Yes, I mean that's of course. If you're not invoking skepticism when trying to figure out that a proposition is true or not, or valuing evidence or the scientific method, then you're up shit's creek. Okay, 0123 says, well, he talks as if he's the only one who knows anything about values. No, I don't think he. Bal Diablo, stop spamming. uh, uh, okay, now this is moving too fast. The chat's moving too fast. I'll try to catch up. Bal Diablo, stop spamming. Puddington says, high resolution analysis will give you good morals without myth or tradition, but not everyone has the ability, inclination, or time to do that. Yeah, no, that's true. This is why the thinkers in society are important. Not everyone's born with the same hardware. We all are born with different hardware. And the ability to compute more quickly with the higher IQ it really comes in handy when dealing with deeper, more difficult concepts. Withering Liberal says, Withering Liberal says, I wish I were a person of faith. I needed the structure. I'm absolutely adrift. I retired very young and have absolutely no guardrails. It's been terrifying. Um, well, I would say just start um, creating your own guardrails based on the objective truths of reality. Look to some good thinkers, some rational thinkers for a little bit of guidance if you feel you need some. But also uh, enjoy moving through life and figuring things out. Just make sure you're obeying the law and general principles that we've put in place of how one should move through society as a good citizen. Okay. I'm just going through the chat here, guys. Again, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. EB says if you are constitutionally just more likely to miscalculate things than not, and there's a system of rules already in place to follow that leads to less error, shouldn't you follow that instead? Um, well, no, because skepticism can be instilled in every human being. And this is something that has been, I believe skepticism is the new step forward in educating people from all walks of life and all levels of wealth, and I just think skepticism as a foundation for children and adults allows them to be their own thinkers. They don't have to feel as though they need to be more conservative and basic thinkers. They can actually, they can, even if they don't have the computer to take on the more difficult concepts at the speed that the person who has the higher intellect can, they can still evoke skepticism to engage with these topics. And they don't have to engage in all the topics or any of them really, as long as they're using skepticism in their decision making. I really think that that should be the ultimate goal for people when they're teaching their children, or kids are going to school, or even at the university level. It's like I think skepticism is the strong foot forward for humanity at this point in time. I mean, we're still circumcising babies, male babies. I mean, obviously, female genital mutilation really didn't, in the West, hasn't really made any traction, and people are automatically like, oh, that's crazy and terrible. But I mean, look, we're still circumcising male babies, and it's mostly, it's Western influence and happening in the West. But like, come on, it's like invoking the slightest bit of skepticism escapes you from that barbarism. So we have a very unskeptical society still in the Western world, everywhere in the world, and people need to start engaging with this more so that we can take this step forward. Ted says people that depend on the threat of hell to be good are frightening people. Yeah, this isn't a good reason to be doing good. Definitely. All right. Anon. Looks like Anon is on a rampage here. So Anon says Western influence, it's biblical and also from Torah. You don't know shit. Why are you live streaming? Well, yeah, part of Western influence is religious influence. That's part of the West. Yes, and it is biblical and also from the Torah. And that isn't okay. Okay, so here's the cunt problem. Anon, man on earth. For those of you who haven't tuned into any of my live streams, I talk about the cunt problem in the room, where there's someone who's just there to be a cunt and not engage in good faith discussion, and that would be a non-earth. Western influence, it's biblical and also from Torah. You don't know shit. Why you live streaming? And then I respond and bye, and then they run. So this is what I would consider the cunt problem. And I'm going to get t-shirts made, I think, because I think it's awesome. Oh, Anon, I thought you ran away. He didn't. Okay, we're at the 2-hour mark here. You guys smash that like button, please, to help this stream out. I really appreciate it. I think we're going to end the video there. Looks like we got probably 2 more videos of this live event to get through. Sam Harris versus Jordan Peterson, night 3. But please subscribe to this YouTube channel. That helps out a lot. If any of you, please please consider going over to Patreon, patreon.com/Pangburn, and becoming a patron. That helps us translate all of these videos into Arabic and Spanish. And I really appreciate all your guys' chat. It's great. And another congratulations to Jeremiah Daniel for winning the 12 Rules for Life book by Jordan Peterson. Huge congrats. And non-man on earth. But yeah, thank you guys so much for engaging. Again, head over to Facebook, at Pangburn Inspire on Facebook. That's where most of our main conversations happen. Follow me on Twitter at the Pangburn. I will follow you back on Twitter. I'm going to engage a little bit more on Twitter. I try not to be too much on there, but yes, sorry, the chat's moving really fast on my window. But anyways, yes, thank you guys so much for the support. I think we're going to do another one of these on, let's see, you know what, on Thursday. And I might even be able to announce to you guys what the new event is going to be that I am so excited to announce. But yeah, it's going to be a big one. It's going to be a good classic theological debate, but also with some politics in there. Very important debate. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I have a lot of fun rewatching these and thinking back, and it really makes me start drooling, thinking I want to get so many more of these conversations happening, because I think they're just so important for everyone around the world, and that's why we do the translations through Patreon. So jump over to Twitter, follow me on Twitter, follow my stuff on Facebook. You guys know where I am. But thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. I'll see you guys all again Thursday, and let art and science inspire.